Welcome to Deep in the Plus. I'm your host, Rob Whiteside. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. It is the continuation of Lindsay Lohan month. All of August long, we're going to be watching Lindsay Lohan movies. We started out with Freaky Friday, moved on to Get a Clue, and now, man, this actually might be my favorite one, so I brought on my favorite person to talk about it, Mr. Patrick Hackett.
Hey, Rob, what's going on? Happy Wednesday night.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting, man. Thank you so much for doing this with me. You know, Lindsay let me just back up and say you wanted us to do a theme month. We kind of kicked some stuff back around, and for some reason, Lindsay Lohan came to the top of the list for me. And part of the reason for it is that you and I have been wanting to do this movie, Herbie Fully Loaded, since forever. Like, it was supposed to be on Disneyplus, and you said, let's talk about it because you're the Herbie guy. And then when it wasn't there, we were like sad and depressed, and then it came back. So now is our time to shine. Tell me a little bit about either your love of Lindsay, your love of Herbie, both, neither.
Oh, I can hit you with a little bit of love for both of them. I think Lindsay Lohan had a fantastic moment in The Sun, which I think we're really celebrating here. A lot of her Disney roles were kind of that ascension into child stardom. And ultimately, I think Mean Girls was probably her best performance. I was kind of looking forward to this because I've heard good things, that it's not really as bad as people say. My mom loved Herbie. She's still around, but I don't know if she loves Herbie anymore. I remember watching Herbie Goes Bananas frequently. That was one of her favorites. So I was cool to see that this movie is a sequel to all of them except for one.
Which one?
The 1997 TV movie.
Oh, the Bruce Campbell one?
With Bruce Campbell, yeah.
Yeah, so you know what? This is one of those franchises like Freaky Friday that they redid and redid and redid. But instead of like Freaky Friday, where it was the same story, same basic principle over and over again, you're right. This one kind of did. It was almost like Herbie was handed off from person to person, and what transpired after that. When you and I reviewed the original Love Bug with Dean Jones, and I think I hopefully talked you into being a Dean Jones fan.
I don't know. I gotta see something else, but I definitely enjoyed watching that movie.
So there was Herbie Rides Again, Herbie Goes Bananas, Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo. Those were kind of the connected Herbie universe, if you will. Yep. And then there was the Bruce Campbell, I believe it was made for The Wonderful World of Disney movie that happened. And then, then we came around to 2005, and this Lindsay Lohan Herbie Fully Loaded, which, like you said, was kind of a throwback to the original. And as the movie's starting up, as I'm rewatching it, I'm seeing all of the footage that I don't remember being there from the original movies. So we get to see, I guess Herbie racing. I'm trying to remember if that's the Thorndike special or not. I think
it is.
So yeah, there's all of this kind of throwback retro, almost like they're giving you sort of like, if you didn't know the Herbie lore, they're telling you, hey, here's all the history of Herbie and where he's been and what he's gone through. And then if you did know the Herbie lore, you're looking at it going, oh yeah, I remember that. That was pretty cool. But they made it really super nondescript. They didn't show Ken Berry or Dean Jones or anybody that came before, so that it was basically just Herbie being the star of it.
So what's really interesting is, I always go through IMDb and pick up little pieces of trivia here and there. This is the first time that it is not one of the family who is part of this. So I'm spacing on their last names right now that were the character name, not the actor.
I have no idea.
From the first movie, what was his?
There, I don't.
I was.
Sorry.
That's all right. So the movies were connected through like a familial line from the first film and the character's name there, and it's been relations of one of the two characters from the first films until this one. This is Jim Douglas and Tennessee Stimmitz. So none of them are related to them in another way. So this is like Herbie found his future, his next family, which is funny because, again, it's a family with a lineage of racing cars.
Yeah. Well, and Tennessee was the one played by Buddy Hackett, and then Dean Jones was
Uncle Buddy.
Dean Jones was the other one. So when they are explaining this through the beginning of this movie, let me back up a second to something you said earlier. Had you not seen this movie until now?
I do not recall.
You're
It
not on the
seemed
witness
very
stand.
new.
I do not recall.
I would like to plead the fifth. No, I thought I've seen this before. I felt like I had seen it before, but watching it, it was all completely new. And I'm wondering, since I had so many friends in college who were big Bruce Campbell fans, if I watched the Bruce Campbell TV movie and thought it was this.
So I saw this one on a Disney cruise ship. You know how
Really?
they have. Have you been on a Disney cruise before?
I have not. I've actually been looking into booking my first.
All right, so I saw this on a Disney cruise ship. I also saw Winter Soldier and Maleficent on a Disney cruise ship. Just throwing that out
That's
there.
pretty cool.
They have first run Disney movies on the cruise ship, as at least they used to. I don't know. I haven't been in a while. As the movie or as the cruise is going on, and so it was a neat way to like catch up on movies that were coming out at the time, and to be able to see a Disney movie on a Disney cruise ship was very cool. So I remember seeing it there, but I'm very much like you. Like I know for a fact I saw this movie, but the whole time I'm watching it, it was as if I was watching it for the first time. I don't remember any of it. I just remember Lindsay Lohan being in a Herbie movie. And that's it. That's all I remember. So
that is all I recalled. It turns out that there's a lot of very talented people making and performing in this film, and
it surprised me.
Show?
It surprised me. It surprised me how many people as I was watching the credits roll. That I recognized. Not a lot of A-listers other than Michael Keaton, but still big names.
Well, and Lindsay was A-list at that point in time.
Sure. So when the movie starts out, we see all these clips. We get this montage of context of what's been happening to Herbie, and now we know like he's on his last legs and he's being taken, basically put out to pasture. So he's taken to a junkyard, theoretically to be sold for scraps or dismantled at this point. So it's the old, number 53, and he's been brought out there. And from the beginning, we get an idea that he's still causing trouble. That he's a little bit ornery, and the guy who is dumping him off is like, "Oh, this car, I had so much trouble with it." The guy that runs the salvage yard is just
Crazy
like,
Dave's.
"Oh, I'm sorry."
Crazy Dave.
Yeah. So sometimes I try not to say things just in case I'm going to throw them at you as a trivia question. You know that, right?
I'm ready for you.
Okay. So
watching these scenes, and I just confirmed it. It feels like an awful lot of Bumblebee's personality from the Transformer movies were kind of taken from Herbie in this.
Yeah. So here's Crazy Dave. And it's very slapstick, right? It's very Laurel and Hardy, Abbott and Costello, the Marx Brothers. Let me try to sound older. The Three Stooges, but it's like a lot of slapstick comedy with Herbie, where he's squirting oil or spraying, soot or exhaust at these people in his way to kind of fight back. At one point, he actually pops his hubcap off at the guy. So one of the things that I noticed immediately with this, and this is 2005. The other Herbies happened, in the 70s. They did a lot of things that they didn't do in the past, and probably because they didn't have the ability to do it. There's a lot more character to Herbie. The headlights blink like eyes. There was one point.
It's very Wall-E, the way his eyes emote.
Yeah, it's a lot more expressive than it has been in the past, right? I mean,
yeah.
And we assume it's because they can get away with it.
Right. When I talk about movies like this, if you paid any attention to episodes I've been on Deep in the Plus before, talk about one of the ways you're going to see a bad movie is when you see a ton of writing credits. So this has 1, 2, 3, 4 on the screenplay, 1, 2, 3 more with story credits. So this has gone through a number of punch-ups. They actually really wanted it to be Herbie in the real world for this generation. And as the script developed, as the movie developed, it just kept getting more and more this outlandish kind of slapstick, and he became more cartoonish. I think they would have been better off, as we see a little bit with Transformers, as we see in, the Fast and the Furious movies that came before this. People kind of dig the car stuff, and I think if we went a little more realistic, it might have had a longer shelf life, and maybe would have spurned a sequel of its own.
Yeah, well, I agree. And there's a lot of the comedy that I was talking about, but also a lot of the effects that almost feel like they've placed them back in the 70s is where I was going for that. That they were almost trying to stay true to the original. Some of the animation and things, like when he's doing his skateboard tricks, or when he's doing the donuts in the grass, or when he's driving and they show her from the side and you see through the window and know it's green screen. It feels a lot like those old school movies, and that's kind of cool.
See, I felt like it kind of hit me with a lot of CG and a lot of obvious CG, and that kind of put me out of it a little bit.
Okay. I do have a question here, though, where I'm going to start to poke holes into a movie that is obviously a silly movie anyway. In the opening montage, they make it seem like Herbie was insanely famous, right? That he was a race car, and that he won all these big races because he won the races in multiple movies. And they even show that he was in a movie which I guess was about him, called Beach Bugs. So he has a movie about him. He has this history about him. And you're telling me that all of these people who love the history of racing, you've got the Peyton family, and they love racing. They're multi-generations of racing. And you've got Trip and his history with racing. Why would they not recognize Herbie? Like, everybody's like, oh, I don't know, I guess his name is Herbie. I don't know. I mean, wouldn't you think that he's so famous? I feel like they should have acknowledged that. Am I wrong? Kind of like them acknowledging.
What are we looking at? We're looking at like 30-ish years since the last Herbie. I mean, they probably faded into obscurity. There's tons of athletes that were really famous and really good at their positions that aren't, real remembered now. I mean, this movie really brings up a lot of Danica Patrick vibes to me, and who even would remember her at this point in time?
I mean, I would, and I'm a very casual race fan. Like, I don't even hardly keep up with it, other than, it was neat to see some of the actual official, like, NASCAR drivers.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. I was trying to take note of that because I figured there would be questions on the exam.
Yeah, on the exam.
Yeah.
Is that what you think, there's going to be an exam?
Yeah, that's what I prep for every time I'm watching a movie now. I'm not watching for enjoyment. It's just to make sure I know what you're going to ask.
Well, I appreciate that. Hey, so let me talk about one little thing I noticed here, too, that I thought was kind of neat, is that in the beginning of the movie, after the credits have launched and we're still meeting Herbie, here's Herbie, and then there's a transition that comes through with the stripes. I don't think we see that ever again. And I wonder...
I didn't even notice that.
Is that because it was the end of the movie? I mean, end of the credits? I don't know. But yeah, when I saw that transition, I was like, that's interesting. Almost like, like the Star Wars wipes that they have. Like, why?
Yeah, that was really cute. That was nicely done.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's when we were introduced to Herbie right from the beginning. We're kind of introduced to his history through the credits, and then at Crazy Dave's, we're introduced to him as as part of the as part of his current day lore. So that's kind of cool. There is actually, now I'm seeing it, there is one more transition. So then I guess what I was going to say was we're introduced to Lindsay Lohan's character and her dad, and there's a transition here. But again, it's
Run that back one more time.
It's like they started doing the transition thing for the first part of it.
Ran out of money?
I don't know. It's weird, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like doing a movie like in comic book form and then not. So here it is again.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's almost like Charlie's Angels, like, with the
very interesting.
The pose.
Yeah. I really thought that the movie was visually interesting. Like, there was a lot to keep your eyes on the screen at all times. I think they did a good job with the action. I don't know if it's with a 2022 lens of seeing the CG, that was really distracting, or if the CG was just really that distracting, even at that point in time, you know?
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the CG was not distracting to me. I did see in the credits that it was done. Sky like Industrial Light and Magic did it. Did the effects, so it wasn't all that distracting to me. What was distracting to me was that some of the effects felt like they were old school, and I didn't know if that was on purpose or not. Like when you look at the original Incredibles and you look at the second one, I think they tried to hold back some of their technology so that they looked similar, so that they didn't look like two completely different franchises. Same thing with Toy Story. From the '95 Toy Story to to Toy Story 4 is a lot of technology changes happening there, and to make it so that they're kind of look like they're all in the same family is probably tough to do. So
I thought the drag race, and we'll get to it, I'm sure, with Trip when it jumps up on the rail. I thought that was very in the vein of Herbie, and also looked like a practical effect that they did. They did quite a bit of practical effects. That's why I think the CG was distracting to me.
Okay. So as the story goes along, we meet Lindsay Lohan's character Maggie. She's racing in at the very last second to her graduation. Her dad is Roy Peyton Sr., as played by, is it Roy or Ray?
Ray?
I think it might be Ray. I think I might have been wrong on that one.
Pretty sure it's Ray.
It's a shame about Ray. So when you go in and you see, like, here's her dad, here's her. She's getting into her graduation at the last second. They're setting up the idea that she loves skateboards, which kind of was a big deal for like a little bit of the movie, and then it kind of went away, which could be back to your writing thing that you were talking about. Like maybe one of the writers was like, hey, this is going to be like the linchpin of this movie. And there's a part where Herbie sees her with her skateboard, and it's almost like he's doing the Baymax, like, I'm downloading this right now so that I can use it later.
Yes.
And then he does, but it's a one-trick pony thing, right?
Yeah. Oh, man. I think that there is something in this movie, and we'll get to our final judgments at the end, but there's something in this movie that gets lost. I mean, Thomas Lennon is an incredibly funny individual. He was a great writer for sketch comedy shows. His film writing outside of projects that he works on he himself is a little shaky, but I can see some of his humor, and I can see a Herbie movie in this. But yeah, there's a lot of like dangling strings. Like the next thing we're going to talk about is her roommate, eventually Charisma, who is there for 5 seconds in the beginning, comes home, and then causes a distraction in one of the, penultimate scenes. And that's it. I thought there was going to be a lot more with that character, but it seemed like just 2 days on set for that actress.
Yeah, that's a weird thing about this character, is that when we first meet her, she's very different than she is at the end. So when we first meet her, she's got glasses, she's all dressed up, all fancy, and she's loading up her car to move on to her new life, et cetera, et cetera. And then when we see her again, she's just very understated, almost girl next door. And so I wonder if, like, again, this has something to do with the two different writing styles of the people who were involved with it, kind of like the whole Gracie Mansion, where the first part is scary and the second part is funny. I don't know. Or maybe they just had a lot of reshoots. Not really sure, but they didn't feel connected. The original introduction of her didn't feel as connected to it to me.
What happens later on, yeah.
So then again, there's a lot of exposition. When we're still about 9 minutes into the movie.
Much exposition.
Yeah, right. So we've already had all that introduction during the credits to Herbie, and then it's like we're learning all about the Peyton family, and so we learn about her, and then we learn that her mom has passed away, and then we learn about the history of the Peyton racing, and we learn that Dad's still in it, but he's got his son is racing, but they have sponsor problems, and they're laying out so much information in the beginning of this. And Cheryl Hines is, I guess, the corporate sponsor with Bass Pro Shops, and so she's there to, I guess, make sure that she's like following the investment, and yet she continues to be the only one that like continues to put money into it. But it also seems like there's a conflict of interest, because she clearly has some kind of relationship or crush on Ray. Isn't that a conflict of interest?
But that goes nowhere. that goes absolutely nowhere.
The
And
relationship?
I was like, yeah, like I feel like we have that last scene where they go in the house together, but what are we really seeing there? Um, and Cheryl Hines and Michael Keaton, fantastic actor, one of the greatest of the generation. But man, he is mailing this in from afar in this role, and he still manages to have so much chemistry with Cheryl Hines, and then it goes nowhere.
So I'm going to argue with you that I feel like even though this is a Herbie movie, it feels more like a NASCAR movie. It feels more like a Days of Thunder, a
Live action Cars,
Talladega Nights, a live action Cars. It feels more like it's in that vein than it is a Herbie movie because it's all about the
100%.
racing for most of it and
100%.
knowing the yeah. Okay, so that's a weird thing to me because there's like when Michael Keaton drops in at the end. After he's, decided he's not going to let her race. And I know we're jumping ahead, but he's not going to let her race. And then all of a sudden he jumps in at the last second, puts on the headset. He's like, I got you. I mean, it seemed like really?
Huge sports movie vibes.
Yeah. So here's Breckin Meyer, by the way, who, look at that. The whole package right there. The good thing they do about Breckin Meyer in this one is making him look a little bit tough boy is that they don't put him up next to tall people. Because Breckin Meyer is not a tall man.
This movie needed a lot more Breckin Meyer. A lot more Breckin Meyer. He's fantastic. Underrated Franklin and Bash, short-lived sitcom with him and Mark Paul Gosselaar.
Oh, it wasn't a sitcom. Tremendous. It was an hour dramedy.
Yeah, dramedy, I guess.
Yeah. But here's the fam. Here's Ray Sr., Ray Jr., and Magpie all hanging out in the car. There's this weird scene.
3 people who look nothing alike.
3 people looking to get a paycheck. That's what they are. They're 3 people getting paid. So I feel like this is everyone in a Lindsay Lohan movie, which is how it should be for Lindsay Lohan month. Everyone just in a Lindsay Lohan movie. Justin Long is in a Lindsay Lohan movie. So when this scene is happening, they're driving back from the racetrack. There's still more stuff going on, in exposition about like them being.
There's so much unnecessary movie in this movie,
right? And so while they're doing it, it's like, oh, you drove me past that tree on purpose, didn't you? And it's like, oh, they still didn't take it down. I mean, they've in a veiled way referred to like maybe she was in an accident because she was street racing and it had something to do with that tree. But they never really talk about it, do they? Or did I sleep during that part?
Okay, I thought I was the only one. I'm like, did the tree get set up? I mean, that's the thing about Chekhov's gun, right? You introduce the gun in the first act, you then have it go off in the third. But like, you can't put the tree in the first act and not have explained the tree prior, or make the tree be important later on.
Well, so there was some kind of thing in the Lemony Snicket first movie. I doubt you ever saw it, the series of unfortunate events. There was a movie, and then they went to make a Netflix show with Neil Patrick Harris. But the
Netflix
movie
show is great.
Talked about a spyglass. And in it, it was like something that wasn't in the books either, because I read the books. And it was just like these little references to it that you're like, they'll probably talk about this later, and then they never made another movie. And that's the kind of thing, too. It's like sometimes I guess you set stuff up, but you wanted to have the payoff at some point. I assumed the payoff was going to be in this movie, and it never was. Here's the tree, and they drive by the tree, and they must spend at least a minute and a half talking about, like, why would you drive by the tree today of all days, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
It feels like when she lost to Trip, the tree should have been part of it in some way, or we should have heard about the street racing prior and then have the tree, like after she loses the race or finds out she's racing, he drives her by the tree. There's like screenwriting 101 stuff in here that could have been fixed to elevate this film.
Yeah. I agree, but again, and I mean, this is what we do in this show. We go deep in the plus, right? We're going deep into this movie, into little details that it's a family movie, it's a G-rated movie that if you watch it with your kids, you're taking on a different take on it than we are here. But we're super fans, and we want to get into it a little bit. So the exposition is not over yet. It continues.
No, but
it continues into the trophy room. where Granddad's picture is up there, and the trophies are there, and the long range of Peyton's and success in racing and all that kind of stuff, and we learn more.
And let's bring this back to your earlier idea. Look at how old that picture is. I mean, maybe Granddad lost to Herbie at some point in time. It feels like, now that I'm adding it up, I feel like you're right. There should have been some knowledge and some reverence for Herbie. It almost would have been better if she goes, I can't believe this is here. And he goes, offers the 50 to Crazy Dave, doesn't get it, and then goes to 75. Like, how could this be here? Oh, it can't be the real Herbie. I'm punching this script up. I deserve a story credit now.
So they talk about the fact that because Mom's gone, that Dad didn't do as much as he should have for Maggie's graduation, so he wants to take her to do something nice because her best friend got this brand new car, beautiful SUV, and so he's like, look, let me go get you a car. She goes, I'm not really going to need it for long because I'm going away and going to New York or whatever, and so I'm not even sure where everyone was going. That was very confusing too. Like, at first I wasn't sure.
Charisma was going to Paris for a week, 2 weeks. Lindsay, what's her name? Maggie had a job as a video editor at ESPN, or a
like
PA
a producer
or something at ESPN, which, by the way, you wouldn't go to New York for that.
You'd go to Hartford.
Bristol.
Oh,
Bristol.
Okay, well,
let's pay respect. Let's put respect on Connecticut towns' names, because we have like 3 things we're known for. It's, insurance, ESPN, and the greatest pizza to ever be outside of Italy.
Disagree on the third one. So they go.
We'll fight about that later.
We will. They go to the salvage yard, Crazy Dave's salvage yard. So we're bringing it back to Crazy Dave, at least. We're closing that loop. And there we see that, Dad takes a wad of cash out of his pocket and hands it to her and says, go nuts, buy a car. And he kind of goes, anything you want.
Should have said go bananas.
He should have. But he like goes, anything you want. And then they show just everything is garbage. And so it's almost like, are you really going to find anything drivable here? And I guess the concept was that maybe Dad could fix it up. I don't know. But she looks around. Or maybe
Kevin was always the plan. Maybe Dad wanted... No, because he doesn't really approve of that
relationship. Yeah, plus we don't know. She's supposed to be staying away from Kevin. He's bad news. The
Justin
only
Long.
movie where Justin Long, I was exactly going to say, is the bad
from
boy.
Fairfield, Connecticut, oddly enough. He's real bad news from the mean streets of Fairfield.
So they cut to Herbie sitting there at Crazy Dave's, and he looks like he's much more worn down than he was when we first met him. So, like,
5 minutes ago,
was there extra time? Like, was there a time frame difference, like, between when we see that opening thing and this? I feel like he was supposed to just come in, but it looks like the brush has grown up around his tires.
Yeah, man, they're really trying to play up that it's been there for a while.
I almost think that maybe the original script called for this just to be here in this,
which makes
in the
more
junkyard
sense
already, rather than how it opened.
Having the slapstick stuff with him. Did that make you sad?
What?
Seeing Herbie like that, did that make you sad? Like, legitimately, did it tug at your heartstrings at all? Because it hit me a little bit.
Not really, because I feel like he's been in this shape so many times before that I know that the arc is for him to get back into, good shape. Yeah. So I guess for me, no, it didn't really mess with me too much. But she sees the stock car she wants, and then she's like, oh, I'm just gonna, and then Herbie starts like running his horn, and in a great misdirect where it seems like she's about to go, oh yeah, I do want that car. She goes, oh my gosh, that horn. And then she goes, reminds me that I want that other car right next to it. How much is that?
It was well done. The Nissan.
Yeah. And then Herbie gets dropped on the car, breaks it, and then...
In the most predictable, like, coming from a mile away, they should have... After that clever misdirect, they should have done something else other than that very, very obvious drop.
Do you think?
Yeah, I do. I think there should have been something else. You hit with a misdirect. Now let's go with the rule of 3. So we get one more misdirect, and then maybe we land on Herbie. Maybe something happens. I don't know. But I felt like it felt too hacky.
Okay. Well, I mean, now that you're mentioning it, number one, yeah. I mean, yeah, obviously the way it's framed with the two of them, with the car she just said she wanted, with this one being like dragged over top of it. Obviously, we knew that's what was going to happen. But the second thing is, now looking at it, it definitely looks CGI. Like that Herbie sitting there definitely looks CGI, which it would have had to have been, because as he's doing this, his doors are flapping back and forth like he's trying to get
like
out
a bird.
This. Yeah. So she ends up offering $50. The guy goes, okay, no, I'll give it to you for $75. And then she gets into it, and she accidentally, it starts going immediately, which this, again, doesn't usually happen with Herbie movies. Usually they kind of have to work into the supernatural part of it driving itself, but this one's right off the bat. It's driving itself. Seems like she should have tapped out once it drove itself, but she gets back in time and time again. No?
Yeah, if this was a horror movie, she definitely wouldn't have run away. But being a comedy or like a racing movie, I don't really know what genre this movie fits in. She should have been significantly more bugged out by the car driving itself.
Yeah, bugged out. So this is another thing that's very interesting about it too, is that in this one, there's a note in the glove compartment that Herbie pops open the glove box. She reaches in. She gets to the note. It says, please take care of Herbie. Whatever your problem is, he'll help you find the answer. What's the answer?
42.
I don't know. It feels like normally they don't give the answer away to Herbie, like telling his name or whatever. Like they have to usually find that out somewhere along the way. But in this one, it's just, again, it's just like let's get you. You know, we're gonna spoon feed you this throughout the whole thing. So here's the note. I'd love to know. We'd never learn, but I wonder who actually wrote the note.
Yep. Who wrote it? What's the point of it? There's not a signature on it. I mean, you can read CGI a signature away. So maybe it was the connection to the earlier family.
But also like
Tennessee or Jim Douglas.
Who would have owned Herbie and then just let him go? Right? Like that's the thing too, is like he clearly, anybody who has him knows that he's magic, and it's not like Mary Poppins where he just goes off on his own at the end because I've solved your problems and I'm leaving. It's just who would have left him in such disrepair that he would have gotten dragged off to like a junkyard? Is this Bruce
you're
Campbell's
asking
fault?
Good questions. We could go with that. I mean, sure.
Okay. So she gets in the car, it automatically drives and seems to know that it needs to go to Kevin, which I guess I shouldn't ask the question if the car has its own mind and knows has its own control, like how it would know that Kevin was the place to go. But she goes, immediately drives to Kevin, almost runs him over. Poor Justin Long. Justin Long, my favorite Justin Long thing ever was Galaxy Quest, just putting it out there. But she almost hits him. He's laying on the ground. Poor Justin Long. And then it's like, oh, hey, Maggie, I can't believe it's you. And she's like, yeah, it's me. And she's like, I'm sorry I almost ran you over. Not like the car almost ran you over. It's, I'm sorry I almost ran you over. They look at the car. He's like, I'll help you fix it up, because this happens to be what he does. And then he's like, you know what, let's get in a car and we'll take a ride around, which again, it doesn't usually tip its hand to anyone else, because there's usually that moment of, hey, my car's alive. And everybody's like, no, it's not. You're crazy. This one,
yeah,
like as soon as he gets in, Herbie shows, hey, I'm going to let people know that I'm alive.
Yeah, man, like, I feel like same with the tree. We should have known about Kevin before we meet Kevin, with so much exposition that does not pay off nor matter. We could have at least been introduced to some of these important characters before they became important characters.
Yep.
So when Herbie starts driving, she should be hitting the brake. No, don't want to go see Kevin. Can't go see Kevin.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's ways to do this.
So then as she gets in with Kevin, Kevin's like, oh, I can get you some parts at the hot rod show. And she's like, oh, I can't go there. I can't go back to that life. And now we're finding out that she was a bad girl and apparently did street racing. So apparently this is kind of a Fast and the Furious crossover situation.
Which they do reference the Fast and the Furious again in later with the scenes going through the engine and out the tailpipe.
Yeah.
The director admitted that was an homage to the Fast and the Furious. Also, one of the other the Charger from Fast and the Furious is visible.
So she gets to the thing, and apparently she's kind of famous there. And there are these guys who are like, "Oh, Maggie, it's good to see you back. I didn't think you'd be back." Blah blah blah. And these guys show up over and over again, and just like as they're like almost fanboys of her, but it's just a weird thing because again, there's this whole backstory that I don't think we know about. This movie was an hour and 44 minutes. It was a theater movie, so it didn't have to like fit for runtime to Disney Channel or anything like that, unless that was its original purpose before they released it to the theater. I don't know. But I feel like they could have added another 30 minutes and fleshed this movie out a little bit more with all of these little seeds that they were planting along the way, no?
I think you could have started this movie in a different place and like instead of riding her skateboard, maybe she should have been street racing before she went and got her diploma. Maybe we see her crash into the tree. I mean, we got this montage all about Herbie. Herbie's great. I guess he's the star, but we know nothing about Maggie and we learn more and more. And I feel like it would have had more clout to it if we had some inklings about who she was beforehand.
Yep. Okay, I agree with that. Then we meet Trip, who is like the bad guy, like the racing bad guy, which is funny because didn't Michael Keaton voice the bad car in the Cars movies?
He did indeed.
So like I feel like that's interesting that he would be tied in with this as well. And so he's at the show, he's giving everybody a thrill. He makes fun of Herbie. Herbie scrapes the car, his car. And this is one of those things, there's a lot of times in here where I'm mad at Herbie. Yeah. I mean, I'm just mad at him. And this is one of those times where he purposely scrapes like keys almost the side of this guy's car to get her in trouble, to bring her into this situation, pushes her into the racing costume or the racing uniform. And then later on when he dead stops because she wants that hot rod car or wants that stock car and he dead stops. He knew she wanted the car, but he didn't know he was going to get like lost to Trip for in the deal.
Yeah. Herbie made his bed kind of in this movie and bit off a little bit more than he could chew. I just wanted to shout out Crash, who's like, I guess, Trip's number 2, Jimmy Simpson, one of the all-time that guys. You see him in a lot of different things, and he's just basically kind of that guy. From Hackettstown, New Jersey. So, a descendant of mine, obviously.
The last time I saw him was Always Sunny, or like saw him in something.
Yeah, he and Charlie Day were roommates several different times. But he's also actually one of the stars of Westworld, which I did not know.
Makes sense. Yes. All right. So then they go to look in the back, and he pops open the front, which obviously in a VW Bug, the front is the trunk and the engine's in the back. Justin Long goes into the front and finds the racing uniform, and she goes into the back and gets sprayed with oil. Theoretically, it's on purpose, but I feel like they just overplayed the sprayed with oil bit. It happens at least 3 to 4 times in this movie. But
to be fair, Rob, it is a car. What else would you like it to do?
Fair. Okay, so he gets the racing uniform, she puts it on, and it's as if it was all part of Herbie's, again, divine plan to get her into the car, to then scrape the other car so that then Trip challenges her to a race but doesn't know it's her because she's in this costume that says Max down it. So they start calling her Max, and then that's her, like, her racing persona is Max, so that she doesn't get in trouble with her dad because her dad doesn't want her racing because, again, this history that we hardly know about. Does that sound about right?
You summed it up much faster than the movie does, yeah.
And at this point, we are still in the first act. I mean, it's like 25 minutes into the movie at this point, and it's just like, I don't know. It's barely a third into it when all this stuff has gone down, and we still haven't really gotten to what is the story. Where's our main conflict? Yeah, right. And so in having the race, then she's kind of hyped up again about racing, but then we find out from her dad that she shouldn't be racing. and then she goes, oh, it was this guy Max, and he's the guy that was doing it, so that she can throw Dad off the scent. And so now she has a reason to be wearing the costume because she wants to make sure that Dad doesn't know it's her. But then then they need money. And there's this article that says 10,000, just a full page ad in the newspaper, which A, who reads the newspaper, and B, a full page ad that says win $10,000 if you can beat Trip Murphy. And
well, I mean, that there is a scene actually explaining that. Is Trip was very upset that he was defeated, and he goes to Thomas Lennon, the writer, a fantastic comedic actor in his own right. I want it in every rag. If the 200 people enter, one person leaves, and you can win $10,000. So they did set that up, which is one of the few things that pays off.
Okay. So now they have this, I guess there's the conflict. There's the thing is she's got to race, and she's got to race these 200 people. Now it's making me feel like, did you ever see Cannonball Run? It's like,
yeah, of
that.
Course.
Okay, just I didn't want to offend you. So
I've seen Cannonball Run and the remake.
Well, it wasn't a remake.
Homage,
it was a sequel.
Rat Race.
Cannonball Run 2.
Right.
Oh, Rat Race. Okay, yeah.
Rat Race is pretty much a remake of Cannonball Run.
Right, where there's like a bucket of money and everybody's racing to try to get it.
Yep.
So that's kind of what they're doing here with this. But she, I guess, takes out all 200 cars like almost with nothing. Like there's no story. They could have had so many small stories there, but it's like a Rocky montage for her to take out all these people, and it takes all of about 5 minutes of the movie for what seems to be the critical part of the movie.
Yeah, and so here's my issue, and let me see if you were feeling the same way. Is Maggie that good of a race car driver, or is Herbie doing all this?
Right.
Because who's getting the heroic arc here? Is it the main character, or is it the car? That's what I've been trying to figure out when watching this movie. Yeah, it's a Herbie movie, but it's definitely a Lindsay Lohan vehicle. So who are we trying to give this redemption arc to? Does it turn out that even though she was a street racer, she's a really good racer, she's a better racer than her brother? Is Herbie doing all this? And you're right, they could have delved into that a little bit. You could have been like, all right, Herbie, I'm going to take over from here, and she does a racy thing.
Yeah, I agree. I did look at it and going, is she really the one who's racing here? Would she have been as successful? And I think maybe they should have shown that. Would she have been as successful if she was in another car and not Herbie? But they didn't. It is
Rob.
What?
We often talk about the people that we love at this point in time in the show. Those are our Patreon people, our wigs.
Yes.
It would be amazing. This is just me spitballing, we're just going off the top here. We really should, for Patreons, take a script and punch it up one day, because we're making this a much better and a much more coherent movie by just pointing out simple little things that they could have done. And it's had a $50 million budget. This isn't a small budget film.
I mean, it's not tiny.
$50 million in 2005 dollars.
Okay.
It's like what, a couple hundred now? I don't know.
All right, so let's talk about something else here. In the same vein of it raising a question, is Herbie is unique, right?
Yeah,
because he's alive, and we don't. And this is not the world of Cars, right? Where every car is alive. No. It's just Herbie is up until now. Herbie's only been the only one alive, but he sees this Concept 1 bug.
Oh my God!
And when he sees the Concept 1 bug, he falls in love with it.
Oh, Rob, why?
Right, another unnecessary thing, but he falls in love with it.
I was so upset with this.
And then there's a scene later where Lindsay Lohan offhand says to him, "She's too young for you," which is funny, but at the same time,
it's not funny.
That's funny. That's
weird.
Funny.
It's weird, Rob.
No, it's funny. That's funny.
It's not.
Okay.
Agree to disagree.
All right. Well, anyway, it was weird that the car was there. And then they use it at the end because he's like, hey, Justin Long is like, hey, Cheryl Hines, did you bring this, or Sally, did you bring your car with you? And she's like, yeah, I did. And so they run out to the car. They grab a replacement part. Then they put it on the car, and they're like, I think it's going to hold. But then they didn't really use it because when they go back to it in footage, it's just that they put duct tape on the problem. They didn't replace it. right? You know what I'm talking about?
Man.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm angry. This is legitimately the plot point of the movie that I hated the most. There is no need to sexualize this car. There's not a point of you making her. I don't want to see Herbie goes on a date. I don't want to see that.
Herbie
I
goes
hated
bananas.
the end. Yeah,
On a
like,
date.
where they're clearly going out on a date, and I'm like, this is the other car sentient now too?
Well, but apparently,
and
yeah.
Didn't she sacrifice her life so he could live?
Right. So,
I don't know.
By the way, here's Thomas Lennon. We've been talking about Thomas Lennon a lot.
Yeah.
So he's in this movie, which is funny because I feel like he was a big part of, or he wrote Night at the Museum, right? Like that was his story.
Wrote, all of them, I believe.
He's also in that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's in a lot of the things that he writes, but I think he just likes to have little bit parts like this. You know what he's fantastic in? Bringing it back to my boy Efron, 13 going on 30.
Which is funny because we were talking about that with the Freaky Friday movies at the beginning of the month, is that there were so many of these Switch movies that took place.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Here's some footage. So, as you said, Tripp is like, I got to get my revenge. We're going to have this little car race. I'm going to put out this purse of money to be able to get, $10,000 is nothing to me. I'm super rich, to be able to to coax them in. And then Thomas Lennon looks at the footage of this, and they're watching, and this is where the skateboard thing came in, which I had skipped over earlier, where like it's riding the rails, doing an ollie?
A 50-50 grind.
Okay.
No, it's a 50-50 grind, man. Come on, get your Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 back.
I'm horrible. Sorry.
I love that movie.
Yeah. So anyway, then they see the article, they decide they're going to enter the race, and then the 200 things happen, and then that's right before the big race with Tripp, which is apparently the next day at 5:00. That's really weird too. Everything happens in one day for 200 races or 100 races, and then the next day
it's like the movie takes place over 72 hours, maybe a week if you want to give it like a little bit of time. But so much happens, and we have no idea how much in story time is passing.
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of shenanigans happening with Herbie and him trying to get Kevin and Maggie together too. That's another thing that sort of happens along the way, as if they needed that little.
And you think he wouldn't want to do this because notoriously the Bugs are not good cars for families. I mean, there's not a ton of storage space. The back seat's really cramped. So why is he like pushing them towards this relationship? Just want a solo driver.
I don't know.
Yeah.
For some reason, in the middle of them doing this montage of fixing up Herbie, they go to a drive-in.
Watch Scary Movie 2.
Why was that necessary?
I have no idea. So, referencing, this is crazy because I went and looked at this. Ready? So, they're watching Scary Movie 2, which is obviously a send-up of all horror movies. Like I said with Teen Beach Movie, it's both an homage and a send-up, and I feel like Herbie is also in that vein where it's an homage, but also a little bit of a send-up and kind of laughing at the film as well. And during that scene in Scary Movie 2, it's referencing Army of Darkness, which obviously is a spinoff of the Evil Dead series, which featured Bruce Campbell, who was also in a Herbie the Love Bug TV movie. I don't know why they did any of it.
That was beautiful. Yeah. I don't know either. Speaking of things I don't know why they did it. Before they actually race against Herbie, and I think it's before they've even done the 200 car race. Tripp and Crash decide to like basically do this computer model of what a VW Bug looks like, and try to break down like where the powers can be coming from. I don't know what program they're using with that file edit view settings, test reports, and help. That always interests me though, when people like do a wireframe of
they're doing a test track, clearly.
Obviously. By the way, with test track, I went with somebody from the blog who was like, do you like to build the cars? I was like, I don't need to build the cars. And they were like, oh, well, here's a little trick. When they don't put a cast member in that room, and that room is just made to slow you down in the queue. And so if you decide you don't want to make a car, you can just walk to the very end and push the door open and get in line.
I love building the car. It's honestly one of my favorite parts. And now that I have, although my daughter hasn't been in it, but I imagine she's going to want to make changes to my vehicle, and I don't know how I'm going to take that.
Yeah, don't know. But anyway, I just thought that was interesting. So,
and that's another thing that doesn't pay off at all. They're doing this analysis of the bug.
No, it really doesn't.
Yeah.
Another thing I thought was interesting is that then they shoot back to her at home, and she's in the kitchen, and on the refrigerator is what looks to be a Mouseketeer. Is that just a Lindsay Lohan picture on that?
I have no idea what either of those pictures of, and I was trying to pay special attention.
There's the Bass Pro Shop sticker, which again, at least it's like, hey, let's
We got Little Debbie's cakes up there. I saw that.
Yeah, and then the other one is Ray Sr. with his arm around Ray Jr. Ray Jr. has like an awkward teenage mustache on it, which was kind of funny. So yeah, again, it's just weird. Like there's a lot of scenes like that I just don't know what their purpose is. So. And at this point, we're not even halfway through the movie, and then that's when the race happens. There's this weird scene where she tries to seduce, and this I feel like happens in most of the Herbie movies, where the owner basically betrays Herbie, and then Herbie's feelings are hurt, and then he uses that against them, and they don't understand that he saw what happened. That like when in the first movie with Dean Jones, where he goes and buys this super expensive sports car, and then Herbie just smashes it to bits. And he's like, poor Herbie, what are you doing? They're like, oh, you hurt its feelings. And he's like, no, it doesn't have feelings. And so this was a similar situation where Matt Dillon's character, the bad guy, is going and like kind of seducing her, which also is a little icky in the fact of the age difference between the two of them. But sort of seducing her, but not like in a sexual way, but with a car. So he seduces her with a car, like, hey, you should take it for a drive. She drives off.
Speaking her language,
Yeah, she drives off in the car, and then he tries to mess with the car. And in something that feels like it should be above Matt Dillon, but I guess it's not after there's something about Mary, he does this whole slapstick situation with the car on his own. You don't think that's above Matt Dillon? There's nothing above Matt Dillon?
No, I don't. Once his brother became more famous as drama, I think nothing was then below Matt Dillon.
Okay. Well, and the funny part is that he's rich, and Crash is his like henchman, and he's probably got other henchmen.
Right,
and
crew chief, henchman, friend.
And yet he's the guy out here in the middle of the night with the toolbox to go mess with the car because it's personal. I guess maybe that's why.
I guess, yeah.
I don't know. But he gets in there, he gets the oil in the face, because you knew he would, and he gets knocked down to the ground.
Bringing it back to another Justin Long movie, this was maybe nobody makes me bleed my own blood scene for him.
One thing that was different from this movie, too, is we get to see from Herbie's point of view in what I'm going to go ahead and call Herbievision, which is kind of like, it's almost as if Herbie can't quite open his eyes enough, and so he sees the world through sort of a hazed lens.
Fisheye lens, yeah.
But, I mean, it's really weird, the Herbievision thing, right?
It's one of those choices that kind of comes out of nowhere and doesn't really play into it too much, other than we're now knowing that Herbie is seeing it. We see that he sees it. It's making the subtext text, like when you're talking about in the Dean Jones thing, you're piecing together that Herbie saw it, and you don't need that actual, oh, Herbie saw it, you know?
Right.
Don't tell me when you can show me, I guess.
I guess so. But, I mean, did he actually do anything to the car?
No, he's just upset at Maggie.
But he wanted to do something to the car, and that's why when it was acting weird, he's like, Herbie's acting weird. Did you leave him alone with... Kevin,
which was a tremendous jump in logic.
Yeah, it was. It was. So then that was the night after Max had won all the races, and then she gets seduced, and now Herbie's got the whole night to stew over this. And then the next morning, the best friend all of a sudden shows up again. She's there. And again, looking very different.
Yeah. Yep. So this is one of the director's favorite people. Both her and Jimmy Simpson were in her other movie that really shot her onto the scene, Debs, Debs. Angela Robinson, who is the director, like fantastic director. Her IMDb is pretty stellar with mostly award-winning projects. She worked on How to Get Away with Murder. She was a producer, a writer, directed episodes on that. True Blood, The L Word, like really tremendous shows. And this, but she brought along some of her favorite actors, so I think that's pretty cool that they were with her in the role that broke her out, and now they're getting their big Lindsay Lohan Disney payday.
Yeah, this is actually, if I'm not mistaken, is this the final? I'm trying to remember where Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen came in. Is this the final Lindsay Lohan?
This is her final Disney film.
The final Disney film. Okay.
Yep.
So, I mean, we didn't go in order when we were doing these. We just went in order of kind of like mixing it up. But, yeah, I figured that was the case, that this was kind of like the end of her dynasty.
Well, there's a couple things about this and Lindsay Lohan and Disney that kind of, you could see that the relationship was wearing off. She wrote a song for this. She thought it was going to be in the opening credits. It was an end credit song. She had her bust digitally reduced in the posters. And you can tell that Disney is kind of like, well, this is our child star. We got to present her wholesomely. But at the same time, she's this burgeoning young woman. And, I thought they were kind of playing fast and loose with where that zipper was on the race jumpsuit. So you can see that this is like where the breaking point is. She's going on to be a woman. Like, you look at Selena Gomez and how amazing she is in Only Murders in the Building. And that's kind of like your jump off, this is the end. And now it's time to go on, you throw away your childish things and move on to the next thing.
Yeah, I can see that. And yeah, there was a lot of like her shirt was a little too short for the pants. And yeah, there was, I guess, a little bit of that in this movie. But I don't know that I saw it that way. So they do the race. Apparently her father and her brother and her best friend decide to show up to this race, and no one knows that Max is actually her, which I don't know how you didn't put that together, except for apparently the Matt Dillon character put it together because he did this close up to see, it's like some weird sci-fi movie where they're like enhance, and he gets.
Oh my God, that was so ridiculous.
He's doing his own tech work also, because apparently, he's got this multi-million-dollar racing business, but all he does is his own work. And he zooms in on the hair and sees like the red hair coming out. He's like, I gotcha, Maggie. And then he doesn't really use that to his advantage. I mean, when she finally like takes off the helmet, like that's her call to do. And then Dad sees her and is like, "Oh, this is upsetting. I never thought you were gonna tell me a lie, and now I'm upset." And it's a weird thing. But this is the part that makes me mad about Herbie, where he stopped dead and he caused the problem that then she had to go fix. And I guess he
does this a lot.
Yeah, in the Dean Jones movie, he was the one that like ran away, and Dean Jones had to come find him. He has a problem. You have your arms crossed. You're mad.
I'm mad about Herbie because he's causing familial discontent for no reason, and I don't know. It's all like in another world. This is a psychological thriller, and Herbie's like the bad guy tormenting this family and manipulating them. It's weird for what's supposed to be this very wholesome, family-friendly movie that this car is basically manipulating every piece of their life. Yeah. Her relationship with her a significant other, with her family, with her friends. It's crazy.
Yeah. So she unmasks. She's lost because they were betting pinks. They're betting pinks.
Which really felt like Grease suddenly infiltrated this movie.
Yeah. And so she loses the car to him. They immediately start to tow it away, and Kevin's like, "Oh, you can't take Herbie away," and he's like, "Oh, you didn't tell him? Yeah, we're betting for pinks." And so now her dad's upset with her, and her I don't know how her best friend and her brother feel about her at this point, but the Kevin character is upset with her, and her fan base is like, "Oh, I can't believe you lost. We were supporting you until you lost, and now you're a loser, and we don't like you." And so it all kind of falls
that's
apart
very
here.
LA sports team of them, so
And
that tracks.
Right, and this is where it gets to the end of basically the second act, and we are beginning the third, where our hero has lost everything and now needs to have the redemption arc and save the day. So, I mean...
And once again, I ask you, who is getting the redemption arc? Is it Maggie or is it Herbie?
I think at this point it's probably Maggie at this point, but I think it was Herbie up until this. Which brings me to the question, Patrick, are you ready for some trivia? And again, if you're watching this net right now, we appreciate it. Thank you so much. Please make sure give this a big thumbs up because it helps Patrick's ego as well as for people to find this video. You ready? You ready? I think this is going to be easy for you. So I'm just going to shoot some stuff at you.
All right, let's go.
What was the name of the guy who brought the car to the salvage yard?
Don.
Correct. I knew that you would find that. When she skates in the beginning, what brand of shoes is she wearing?
Ooh. Vans?
They are Vans. I feel like that was almost a given because it is skateboarding. What school did she graduate from? She was graduating from college here, by the way, and not high school, where it felt like a high school graduation where you roll in on a skateboard. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Los Angeles University.
And graduate with a bachelor in what?
Fart. Video production.
Communications. Close enough.
Hey, me too. Look where it got me.
Same here. When she's in the trophy room, and she's wearing one of those short shirts, what's on that shirt that she's wearing?
That's a good one. I thought you were gonna ask something about the trophies. I'm like, I didn't look at those enough. I feel like she wore a lot of shirts with like big circular graphics on them.
It was the Golden Gate Bridge.
That's circular, half circle.
Yeah. When she's racing Matt Dillon's character, what shoes or what brand of shoes is she wearing?
Nike.
They are Nikes. Tell me you just guessed that.
No. I remember seeing her step in, and I remember there was a couple close-ups of shifting with our, clutch and all that. The Max costume is really like, it's super sweet.
Yeah. Here's another easy one. When they this is what happens at the beginning of Act 3 is they take Crash takes Herbie to a demolition derby. Whose demolition derby is it?
The guy who kind of talks like Yosemite Sam. I have no idea.
Jimmy D's.
She's like, well, this
Jimmy D's.
Jimmy D's.
There's a big sign out front about Jimmy D's, and he introduces himself as Jimmy D.
Jimmy D, and this is my race.
Yeah.
And Charisma comes and flirts with him for reasons so she can run onto the demolition derby.
Yes. Yeah, there's nothing weird about that at all. And what year is the Herbie the Love Bug according to Maggie?
63.
Correct. Yeah. That was all pretty easy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing too much to worry about there. I was surprised you got the Nike thing though.
Yep. I watch a lot of. I'm very into costuming. Like I really enjoy when costuming's on point, and I feel like for like the time they had pretty good costuming for this.
All right, 3 more quick questions, rapid fire.
Oh sure, let's go. Yeah.
What is the Peyton family's car's number?
58.
56. Yeah.
Which I knew it was something that they easily turned into a 3.
They entered the 56 car, but then they used a 53 for Herbie, where they surely could have made it a 56 because they were redoing it.
Yeah. But I guess Herbie has to be 53.
When the movie takes place at her graduation, how many years since her mom has passed away?
Oh my God, I have no idea. I didn't even know they've referenced the mom passing away until you brought it up. I'm like, I must have spaced out on that. I'm too busy looking at shoes to pay attention to dialogue, apparently.
It was in the trophy
No
room.
idea.
Yeah, because it was part of that exposition that I was like, oh, come on. Really?
That scene was so overwhelming with stuff I was looking for to try and figure it out that I did not process anything. Had that happened to me before.
It was 10 years. And then the last question is, and it has to do with the diploma. So if you were paying attention to the diploma and you saw that it said Los Angeles University on it, what is Maggie's middle initial?
No clue. Wow.
C.
For cookie.
C is for cookie. Yeah, exactly. All right.
You're going to get taken down. No, you got to watch it. Sesame Street's lawyers will be out here in a minute.
I know. First,
you think they like Tom Corliss? You know.
Let's talk about the cast real quick. I think we talked about it a little bit. Michael Keaton, Breckin Meyer, Cheryl Hines, Lindsay Lohan, Justin Long, Matt Dillon, and Thomas Lennon. Again, not a bad crew for a movie that a lot of people seem to have forgotten about.
No. Yeah. No recollection that Michael Keaton was in this at all. Also, did not remember that Michael Keaton was Chick Hearns. Is that who he is in Cars?
Yeah.
No recollection of that either.
Okay.
But apparently this is what he did before his career resurgence. And when people are like, oh, hey, this dude can really, act his face off.
Yeah.
Also, he thinks he's actually Batman. So, maybe he's Bruce Wayne.
Or Birdman or the Vulture. So
he's always a flying animal.
Yep. But the other stars of this are the racers, and so whenever you bring actual sports stars into it, it's not usually they're not usually good actors. So Jeff Gordon shows up and he's looking at the car.
Yep.
You got Tony Stewart is in this for the racing. And one of the things I noticed is as they're actually racing in that race, all of the drivers, their helmets are covering their faces, and only Lindsay Lohan and Matt Dillon's faces are open.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess
it does sound like their voices though when they're talking throughout the race. So it does sound like Casey Kane and a couple other people who are mentioned in there. So I wanted to talk about that real quick. This is kind of early on in the Disney ESPN relationship, and ESPN is name dropped a lot. The Speed Network is name dropped a lot, which I believe was owned by Disney at that point in time as well. So, I mean, this feels like such a vehicle for all things Disney. It's like, this is our Disney It Girl. This is our new acquisition. You can watch NASCAR here. Here's the Speed Network. We own that too. Yeah. It's like Eisner showing off all his new toys before he shuffled off all this.
Yeah, and Stuart Scott was in here, who has passed away since.
But I thought you were going to ask that.
Yeah. Stuart Scott was in here, and I would hesitate to say it was the last thing he ever did, but
no, it's definitely not. He lived a little bit longer after that.
So the way the movie progresses now is she goes back to the Demolition Derby, which I think we've done Demolition Derby with Herbie before, and then it's also used in Cars 3, right? So we go to the Demolition Derby. She saves Herbie. They make up. She brings him back.
Herbie saves her with that weird flippy in the sunroof move.
There's a lot of weirdness, like where he jumps on the monster truck and it just happens to fall apart.
Yeah, and I gotta say, Crash does an amazing job in this scene. Like his chaotic evil energy was just flowing out everywhere. I always enjoy when you think like the actor is having a good time. That had to be fun to shoot. Like, just embrace your inner villain. Go for it.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So they bring the car back to Kevin, and she's like, "Look, I know you're mad at me, but can you do something for Herbie?" And he's like, "I don't have any money because I spend it all on apparently the people who want these parts that need money or want money," which is a good point because he spent all his time basically working on Herbie for the duration of this movie. Like, how is he actually making a living? And so then all of a sudden the brother shows up. And says, "Hey, Dad said you can't race, and even though I can't race, I want you to race, and I'm going to take the leadership role here." And she's like, "Well, if I'm going to do it, I race with Herbie." And he's like, "Okay, let me bring my entire crew out, and we'll rebuild that car."
Rob, you said you're a casual race fan. I've also been a casual racer, and I was actually more of a fan of the NASCAR video games than I was of watching it on TV. There's a lot of different car varieties that go out there. I mean, especially when you get to Formula One racing, there's, Ferrari, there's all these different cars everywhere. Have you ever seen any Volkswagen in a race? Never mind a bug. This is the ultimate. I guess there's nothing in the rule book that says a dog can't play basketball.
That's kind of, you're absolutely right. It reminds me of something else. But before we do that, I want to relish in this scene, and I'm trying not to show too much footage, but I feel like this needs to actually be shown. Them walking towards Herbie in this whole
the right stuff.
Yeah. It's just I don't know. It's a little bit over the top. But yeah, it reminded me of a thing that drives my son crazy about Cars 3 is that Lightning McQueen can't finish the race. And sorry for the spoilers if you haven't appropriately watched Cars 3 in the right amount of time.
Still are waiting to see Cars 3.
If you're just waiting for that right moment, there is never the right moment. So you just got to bite the bullet and watch it. So they're racing the Piston Cup, and he's like he puts Cruz Ramirez in his place, and she wins the Lightning or the Piston Cup. And the question is, isn't that cheating? I feel like that's cheating.
Yes, 100%.
Because you've got one racer or one car that does like 2/3 of the race, and then you put in a fresh racer / car to finish it off. Feels like maybe not something that should be illegal. So same thing with this one.
In professional wrestling, we call that the old switcheroo or twin magic, if you will. The two wrestlers who look so much alike. You just it's definitely illegal. Bad guys do that. That's a bad guy move, Lightning.
All right, so let me ask you this about bad guys while we're at it. So clearly this movie is somewhat sponsored by Pepsi because there's a lot of Pepsi placement in it, right?
There was a lot of product placement in
Right, because, I mean, it's NASCAR. But, I mean, there's a lot of Pepsi placement specifically. And then these guys were sponsored by Cheetos. The bad guys were sponsored by Cheetos, which is a Frito-Lay product which has a relationship back to Pepsi. My question is, if I'm a sponsor, do I want my logo plastered all over the front of the bad guy? Because there's no redemption for this bad guy.
No.
There's no redemption for Crash.
Cheetos,
there's no redemption
cheaters. Yeah.
Maybe, but again, you're putting my brand on the bad guy.
There's a rumor that Apple will not let you show their product logos if they're like with a villain of some sort. Well, I don't know if that's true, but I mean, it's definitely possible. All publicity is good publicity. And so, I don't know. I kind of wanted some Cheetos after watching that and the logo. And then I was thinking about the Cheetos logo during the movie because I'm like, how's that changed? I was trying to figure out if there was differences in the 2005 versus 2022. And then I was like, I kind of want Flamin' Hot Cheetos. I kind of want Cool Ranch Flamin' Hot Cheetos.
So you're saying just the product placement in general. Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm kind of susceptible to stuff like that.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So anyway, the other thing I was going to say was then the other racers come and they stand around the car, like Jeff Gordon comes and stands around the car and is talking about it and like looking at what a beaut it is and et cetera, et cetera. And when that happens, again, I start thinking back to the idea of if these guys are huge racing fans, would they not recognize of all cars this white VW Bug number 53 that just happened to win 8?
That won Monte Carlo.
Yeah, exactly. And it winks at him. I don't
know.
It winks at Jeff Gordon.
Yeah. So I was polarly opposed to you because I'm like, sports people fade away all the time. But now I'm thinking this is legacy families. There's Earnhardt Jr. that we're talking about here, Maggie's whole family. And I feel like somebody should have known about this.
Well, again, they know about Maggie's history with her grandfather and what a great racer he was. So it does stand to reason that they should know about it. So I do think that was a little bit of a flaw that nobody knows about it. And I don't think that would have ruined it necessarily if, they could have still gone the angle of, well, you've got a female driver, with Herbie now, and she's given him new life and all this. And you could have really kind of played upon that. So,
or you could have had it like hidden, so we saw it all covered with dirt and dust. We could have got that nice like scene where she wipes it off and goes 53. No, it can't be. Something like that.
Yeah, that would be kind of neat. So again,
But all this with having a woman racer, Danica Patrick, she didn't really hit the scene until later on. It's almost as if Maggie was the proto Danica Patrick.
Maggie had to walk so that Danica Patrick could run.
Yeah.
So then we get to the scene that I was talking about before where they're all putting on their helmets, right? And her helmet is open, but all the rest of these guys, their helmets are closed. I was trying to see, yeah. So her helmet's open, his helmet's open, but the rest of them, they're all closed. So you can, which seems more accurate.
Yeah.
But
it also was filmed during race weeks.
Okay.
They film the racing scenes during races or before races. So it might be some of them, or it might be stunt doubles so they don't get tired, before driving the actual race.
Yep. So the last thing is that she's in the race, that she's about to, she's getting boxed in, and then she gets pushed up on the front of, it might have been Tony Stewart's car. And she's like, what do I do? And then here comes Dad on the microphone because he, ran out to the raceway, somehow got into uniform, got out on the racetrack
and a headset
and put on a headset and was like, hit the gas, baby. She's like, Dad, you're there? So it felt weird.
Mm-hmm.
And then here's that piece that I was talking about before where they show it leaking. They put all this duct tape on it. I feel like if you had gotten the actual piece that you needed out of that car, you wouldn't have had to have put duct tape over the bottom of it. So I don't buy into that whole premise. It seems very weird, and it stood out to
unnecessary.
me. This is not me nitpicking this movie like we've been doing. This is just, it stood out quickly to me. Like, why? We knew Herbie was in bad shape. She has this very soft moment where she understands Herbie is, possibly this could be the end for Herbie. And she's like, I'd rather keep you than win this race. And that's all Herbie needs to get fueled because he just needs the love. And he goes, okay.
He does run on love. He is the love bug.
Yeah, exactly. Titular. Although there was no titular scene in this, and there's not, man, we have Herbie and he's fully loaded. They never did anything like that.
Thank God. That's one of the worst things in movies. When Will Smith in the original Suicide Squad goes, what are we, some kind of Suicide Squad? And I'm like, please just stop the movie now. You've already thrown the brakes on it. Oh God.
What do we think of this scene, Patrick?
I liked it. I actually thought this was really cool. I felt like this was in the Herbie, in the
spirit.
Yes, thank you. In the spirit of Herbie, that's kind of something that he would do in the other movies. You actually see it in the beginning of the film where he goes up in the tunnel. It was cute. I liked it. I didn't think it was too distracting at that point in time.
Yeah. Also very Talladega Nights-ish is when they have to, well, I was going to say is when they have to pull Trip off of the racetrack in a paddy wagon, basically, because he's like, that car's alive. I know it. I swear. So. And then there's that cute little scene where Justin Long's standing there talking, and she says, Herbie, can you help me out? And Herbie pushes him in the butt closer to her so she can kiss him.
Mm-hmm.
It's a G-rated movie. That's really, she kisses him and then she hugs him, and that's pretty much it. There's not any swearing. Although I feel like there was a place where Matt Damon is saying this car is really
Matt Dillon.
I
get, yeah. Matt Damon in this.
Hopefully that's the first time I've done that. Hopefully, but he says something along the lines of, "I'm really pissed off," but they edit it to say "ticked off."
Yeah,
and so I guess that was to get that G rating. But then they all win. Everything goes happily ever after. Maggie Peyton and Herbie win in their big NASCAR debut, and that's what the title says. Maggie Peyton and Herbie win in big NASCAR debut. Brought to you by Nextel, I guess.
Well, no, it was the Nextel Cup at that point in time, because prior to that it was the Winston Cup, and then we realized that we probably should stop advertising cigarettes to everyone. So kids, for those of you who are watching, Nextel was the worst creation in the history of cell phones, where your friends could just suddenly start talking to you at random points in time. It was half walkie-talkie, half cell phone.
Yeah, I never had.
And if your friend knew you were on a date, they would particularly abuse that habit. Looking at you, Brandon.
Speaking of dates, there's this weird moment at the end where Michael Keaton's giving the dad speech, have her home at the this hour and all that, but apparently he's given the dad speech to Herbie.
No.
Yeah,
Rob.
he is.
No.
He's giving it to.
But why?
I mean, you had to finish this arc, man. I mean, this is the love arc of the Love Bug.
There's no. And why is her VW medallion blacked out if we clearly know who made that car?
I don't know.
Oh, God.
One last thing I want to talk about was the soundtrack. There was a lot of interesting music in this. And like Van Halen's Jump, that was kind of cool. And a lot of it, some of it was like Working for the Weekend and Jump and things where they used the original music, and some of them were remakes. Although I ran into a discrepancy here.
Talk to me.
So one of the things I was actually going to ask you about was what the opening song was that they were playing, and the opening song they were playing was "Get You Back" by the Beach Boys. When I look at the track listing online, it says it's "Get You Back" by Mark McGrath, who is the lead singer of Sugar Ray. But if you're watching Deep in the Plus
and a WDWNT fan, you must know who Mark McGrath is.
I'm just putting it out there. Okay, so but it lists Mark McGrath as the singer, but in the movie credits it lists the Beach Boys as the singers. And I thought it was the Beach Boys version of it.
I did too.
That, and then Working for the Weekend is listed as being Loverboy in the movie,
right?
But in this, it's listed as being Josh Grayson. So I'm wondering if the soundtrack has covers, and if the original movie
they only paid for the film rights, not for the soundtrack.
Yeah, because Josh Grayson, if you know, he came in like 4th in American Idol one year, the year of Daughtry, I think. And so it's weird for him to be on this soundtrack. But again, that's what I'm wondering, is if the soundtrack has these remakes on it, and then the original one was done.
That seems like it would make sense, right?
Yeah. So then also the song
Allie and AJ in that
Walking on Sunshine,
yeah.
I think though they did the one in the movie though.
Yeah.
And not the Katrina and the Waves version. So
this is a crazy soundtrack,
and it has Lindsay Lohan's First, which, as you mentioned, is actually played last.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not even the first song into the credits.
No, it's the second song into the credits.
Yeah,
I know.
So, Hello by Lionel Richie is listed in the credits, but I think that was only on the soundtrack. But I think they only used it for the love between the two bugs. Yeah, interesting. I do love also that they used like the George Bruns. Is that who it is? The Herbie music from the original movie.
Yes, I liked that. Yeah. I liked every little bit where we kind of got some from the original movie. I thought the original movies was cool because I expected this to be a hard reboot. I didn't expect this to be tied into everything. And like I said, I felt going into this movie that I've seen this movie. Clearly I have not.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anything else we missed before we do a final wrap up here, buddy?
I think we covered just about everything. I felt like it's a little bit weird when you have a franchise and this did not leave any room for a sequel. I thought that was a little bit interesting.
They sort of did, where like Matt Dillon's character, as he's getting into the ambulance, is like, "You haven't seen the last of me. I'll get you, I swear." Like there could have been some sort of of a comeback of that kind of a nature, but I don't know. That's the thing I wonder about with this. So I guess before we get into the final thoughts, is what's next for this franchise? We now have Disneyplus, which would allow them to do a series or a made for Disneyplus movie. There's a lot more outlet for them to do more IP with this, and I feel like Herbie, Mary Poppins, Dalmatians, Freaky Friday, Computer Wore Tennis Shoes, all the Kurt Russell stuff, all of those are really prized possessions of the Disney company, and I feel like that there should be something that they can do with it. And I feel like Herbie, the only time I remember them really using him in the parks was when they used him for the Lights, Motors, Action. Which was just a cross promote.
found myself missing Lights Motor Action while watching this. It reminded me of something better that Herbie was in. And that's
Ouch.
not saying much. I think this is absolutely rife for a Disney Plus series of some sort. I think, man, how great would this be animated? Maybe Herbie's like the new Magic School Bus. He goes and solves people's problems and teaches them something.
Maybe.
I don't know. Yeah, I think there's value in it. Clearly, Disney thinks there's value in it. It's been in the park. It's at a resort. You know, it's generational. My mom taught me about it, so I think there's like a lot to be said for Herbie as a franchise.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then if I'm looking at Disney Plus, I mean, we've got, you know, right there at the top, you've got Herbie Fully Loaded, which we've just done. We have The Love Bug that you and I have already reviewed, and then there's Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo, Rides Again, and Goes Bananas, as we mentioned before, but also not the Bruce Campbell version.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting. Well, there was a lot of those that were the made-for-TV Wonderful World of Disney, and we talked about this with Freaky Friday when we did that one 2 weeks ago. Was in Freaky Friday there was a Shelley Long version that was done for the Wonderful World of Disney, and then they also did a Computer Wore Tennis Shoes with Kirk Cameron, and they did a remake of the Absent-Minded Professor with Harry Anderson, and none of those are on Disney Plus. So there's still the possibility or the opening that could happen. But Bob Iger said at one of the shareholder meetings that I went to, he said that there was some stuff that wasn't in good enough shape to put on Disney Plus, and I brought that up before too. So yeah, I don't know. I'd love to see everything that Disney has ever done ever,
seriously,
including the in-room Disney World movie. I mean, Disney World loops. Like everything on here. Like just put it all on here. That's why we buy it.
Yeah, let me get Stacy back, man. Stacy's such a formative part of me becoming a Disney fan. I want to be able to revisit it.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so final thoughts, my friend. I mean, we've watched the movie. We've talked about this. We had been wanting to watch it for a long time, and now that you've seen it, now that you've been able to think about it, get it fresh in your mind, I need you to tell the people, would you recommend this movie?
No, absolutely not. This is one of the first times where I agree with you. Like, it was too short. There were plots that didn't get wrapped up. There were characters that we didn't get a proper introduction to. There is a movie in here that's entertaining somewhere, but it's not in the finished product that we have. So I would not recommend watching this.
Interesting. Okay, well, and there is actually, you actually texted me, and I'm looking through this now, trying to find it. Where you said, "Oh, this is bad."
Yeah.
Thomas Lennon, funny actor, bad writer. So I already knew coming into this that you were not going to be a fan, but I thought when you recommended that we do this movie originally back in the day that this was going to be something you were excited about. I love Herbie.
Me too.
I love
me
Herbie.
Too.
I never had a VW when I was a kid. All my friends did. I always wanted one that I could paint white and put the stripes on and have the big 53 on it. And so I have an affinity for this, and I do think we have an affinity for inanimate objects more so than people. They could have killed 8 people in this, but when you break Herbie, you've broken my heart, because like that's Herbie. Like, you know, that's tragic. Same thing as Wall-E or any of those other, you know, inanimate objects or animals. You don't mess with those. So I have a love of Herbie. I think if you love the original movies, you should watch this one. If you've like overlooked it because of Lindsay is the best thing, I think, to me about this movie, honestly. So I would say definitely, if you enjoyed the originals, go back and watch it. I think it's fun as like just a family movie. It's just not great. Like I would maybe recommend it, but it's just not that great. So there's a lot, as we've said in many occasions, there's a lot better options on Disney Plus for you to check out. So I was a little disappointed in this one because I had a better memory of it in my head. But I still love Herbie, and I still love number 53, and you know, I'm still gonna try to figure out if there's something we can do merchandise-wise for it.
What happened to me is I looked at this, I'm like, oh, it's not as badly rated as I thought. It's 4.9. A little bit better. That's Rotten Tomatoes. It was a little bit better on IMDb. So I'm like, this is a mediocre movie. This isn't like a bad movie. If you want to watch a bad Lindsay Lohan movie, I Know Who Murdered Me is atrocious, but a ton of fun. Kids don't watch that without parents. But like, I started looking at this. I'm like, Tom Lennon's in it, Michael Keaton, Breckin Meyer, Matt Dillon, Lindsay at her peak, at peak Lohan. And it's just like, this is not, it's not middling. It's bad. It is out and out a bad movie. And it's not fun bad. It's just like, why is this 84 minutes taking 6 hours of my life?
One of the things about her in this movie, because it is Lindsay Lohan month, I do think we need to focus a little bit on that, is to say that she's not, this isn't played to her strengths, I don't think.
I think it is.
No, well, and let me go back to the fact that in Parent Trap and in Freaky Friday, she gets to play two different people. In this, she's just kind of, to my knowledge, being herself when she absorbs the Maggie character. Whereas, like, she's, she has different roles that she does in, and maybe more closely to Get a Clue than any of the other movies that we review. But I'm not throwing any shade. I think like I said, I think she's the best thing about this movie. I think Justin Long looked like he had maybe been working out for this role. Like, he looked like he was actually.
Is this before or after Dodgeball?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
If you can dodge a wrench.
I think she actually is perfect for this, because I think what we have in Lindsay Lohan and celebrating a month of her for this is she's perfect at playing the every girl. And I think, like, that girl next door, you didn't expect me to be able to drive a NASCAR, to be a street racer, to be a skateboarder. And she just kind of falls into the role. I think, honestly, especially at this point in time, she is playing far different a person than she is.
Okay.
So I think that shows who she is as an actress, because she's a different person. She's partying. She's not this, like, every girl went and get your degree, get your ESPN job, and also you're going to fulfill the family legacy. I don't think they gave much weight to anything she did. I think most of the emotional acting is done by Breckin Meyer or Michael Keaton. When he kind of fakes his eye injury, I thought that was a really sweet thing, and kind of showed a little bit of Breckin Meyer's range in that small snapshot. But yeah, I think this is where Lindsay's great. And I think, it's a fun month to celebrate, because this is seminal for so many people coming up. This is like right out of college for me, my adolescence years. And this is when I'm choosing to go see my own movies. I'm not going with a parent. And I thought I went and saw this in theaters. I apparently did not. So, it's cool. It's cool to talk about who were the Disney it people. I think we do that a lot with me and you, both covering High School Musical and Teen Beach. They're kind of their next it person.
Well, and I mean, there were it people throughout their history.
Oh, yeah.
Driscoll was one of their it people, and Annette Funicello was one of their it people, and Kurt Russell and Dean Jones and Fred McMurray, people that they used in a lot of movies, and that was kind of the role that that Lindsay played. And she was in Parent Trap in 1998, but then she did Get a Clue in 2002, and then I think Freaky Friday was 2003, Drama Queen was 2004, and this was 2005. So they were four movies back to back to back. I don't know where Life Size figures into this, because Life Size is not on Disneyplus, but I think it was probably between Parent Trap and Get a Clue. So, she to me epitomizes this era of Disney, and the fact that she got to do 3 remakes basically of 3 valued franchises with the Parent Trap, Freaky Friday, and Herbie, I think goes to show that they had a lot of confidence in her to put her into those franchises. So, next week we'll be back to talk about the Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen with Coach, because there has been a campaign to get Coach on Deep in the Plus, and no better way to get him in.
I'd take him completely out of his comfort zone. Yeah,
exactly. Like, we've talked about before that you and I have done some sports reviews. We did The Sandlot, and,
Oh,
and I
God,
feel
yeah.
like we did one other sports one that just didn't really take off. So I hesitate to put him into his comfort zone into a sports movie. There's
I think
Million
it's a great
Dollar
idea.
Arm, there's McFarland USA. There's a lot of stuff we could do, but I just feel like, hey, let's make him shine here. So he's going to be doing Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen. So hopefully you guys will join us for that one next week. Thank you so much for your time, Patrick. As always, thank you for gracing us with your presence. I know
I love being here, Rob. This is a ton of fun, and anytime I get to talk about silly movies, just a quick end note. This is one my wife said, I am not watching this with you. You know how your family says, I think that's a Nashville movie? This was you can wait till I go to sleep and suffer through this late at night.
Wow. That's pretty heavy. I thank you again for doing this. Thank you to our WIGS members. And again, our WIGS members, we love our WIGS. If you want more information on our WDWNT Interglobe Society, go to patreon.com/WDWNT. Also, don't forget about the other great programming we have on this channel. News Tonight is on hiatus for a little while, but we also have Park Center on Sunday nights at 9 p.m. We do Disney Entertainment News Today on Tuesdays. We do Deep in the Plus on Wednesdays, and on Fridays we have Boxed In. So lots of stuff for you to see. Please subscribe to WDWNT TV for all the great content. And again, Patrick, my friend, thank you so much. We will see you next time.